What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rusty Wrench Restorations, and I'm still Steve. So, fingers crossed, today's the day. Yesterday we rebuilt the carburetor, right? And I got that installed. I have a small bucket under here with a little splash shield. In the event that I have any fuel leaks from this area, it'll get collected in this little bucket. The connection to my carburetor is a little bit suspect. I have a new one on order, but in the meantime, as long as we don't have a gushing leak, we're going to still go for a start. So all the fluids are filled except for gas, which I need to put that in, but my coolant is filled. I filled that last week, and I took the drain plug out of the oil pan and I let it sit overnight, basically to make sure I didn't have any issues with head gaskets. I pulled the plugs, make sure there was no coolant at the top end of the cylinder from the head gasket, and that nothing was leaking by a crack in the block or piston, cylinder sleeve or anything. So we're good there, right? That was the one thing I wanted to do so I didn't cross-contaminate my new coolant with any new oil that I put in. I did have a small coolant leak on the water pump where the back plate has a gasket that goes onto the pump. So it was a new pump that I bought, but I had to use the old plate from my old pump. The new pumps don't come with that backing plate, and it's a paper gasket. So as always, we don't put any RTV or silicone or anything on those paper gaskets. So until that gasket had time to soak up some of that coolant and swell, I did have a weep from it a little bit. So I let it sit overnight and it cleared right up. So the paper gasket swelled, it did its job, it sealed the pump. So no issues there. So coolant is good, no leaks. I filled the engine oil. We're good on that end. Transmission oil, final drives. So all our fluids are filled, like I said, with the exception of the gas, which I'm going to put in here shortly. I put the battery in. I got the wiring harness in last night, and I did turn the tractor over to make sure that I had oil pressure. So I have good oil pressure. This tractor was originally set up with a remote, like a pressure transducer, right? So the oil pressure would push on this little diaphragm. It was an oil sending unit, right? And then it would give an electrical signal to go to the gauge on the dash to let you know what the oil pressure was. That unit, I don't know if it worked or not, and a new one was fairly expensive. I want to say it was like 150, 160 bucks. So I decided to go with the option of the remote mechanical gauge. And basically what that is where that sending unit was over here, or where the gauge is on an older tractor like a 420 or a 40. I have this copper line that comes up and sends oil from the filter housing assembly up to the gauge in the dash, and it gives me the mechanical reading of just the oil pressure without any electrical input to that at all. So good oil pressure. Actually, if anything, it's a little on the high side, so we'll kind of play with that as it goes. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, it's a super exciting day because I can't wait to hear this thing finally run. But it's like so nerve-wracking at the same time. You know, all last night, I could have put fuel in this yesterday afternoon and tried to start it last night, but I really wanted to take my time and go through and make sure that I had everything right. I didn't forget anything. It's always nerve-wracking the first time starting it because, you know, there's a lot of time and money invested in these things. The engine components are not cheap. Nothing is, you know, and the last thing you want to have to do is deal with a problem or have a failure, right? So we try to mitigate that risk by checking certain things. Obviously, I turn the tractor over. I know it turns over good. There's no binding or funny noises or anything. It has awesome compression. I have these tennis balls that I cut that I put on the exhaust here, and you can see it's hard to get on there. It fits pretty tight, but it blew this thing off and hit this metal roof and scared the bejesus out of me. But so we know we got good compression. There's no fluid leaks or anything anywhere, so we're good on that aspect. I double, triple checked all the wiring harnesses, so like really I've done everything that I can. I know I do have spark at least to the points. I took the rotor cap off and I have spark there. I tried with the plugs, but everything's painted. There's no bare metal. I don't want to scratch anything, so who knows? We might have a failure to spark issue, but at least I know I have power from the coil to the points inside the distributor. So anyway, I've been rambling on enough. I'm going to put some fuel in the tank. I'm going to let the fuel go to the carb, let it sit for a minute, make sure nothing's flooding or overfilling, and then we'll go for a start, see what happens. So one thing I do want to always recommend when you're starting a tractor for the first time is to have a fire extinguisher nearby. Knock on wood, I've never had to use it, but I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. My batting average is pretty good. I've done a lot of these tractors where I've completely disassembled them. My MC, the 40, now this 430, and knock on wood, they've all started. So hopefully we'll have the same results with this one. Some of them you might have to kind of fiddle with the carburetor a little bit. So I have my flat tip screwdriver here to make adjustments on the idle setting, and then I have my 1/2-inch wrench to loosen the nuts that hold the distributor in place, so in case we have to adjust some timing. So there may be some tinkering and adjustments that have to get made, but I'm pretty sure that we're probably just gonna hear it fire off and everything's good. So everything's cold. I haven't started this yet, like legit. My dad said, make sure you video it the first time you start it. Don't cheat. Don't start it and then say it was the first time. So I'm gonna roll with that. I wouldn't do that anyway. But anyway, I'm gonna stop the camera for a second here. We'll get some fuel in the tank, and then we'll continue on and hopefully hear this dragon breathe some fire. Not literally, just run. All right. It's also a good time to make sure we don't have any tank leaks. Make sure I have my fuel shut-off valve. Yep, it's off. I've never put fuel in this tank, so you know, we don't need to fill the thing up. We're not going on a road excursion here. I just want to put a little in, and we'll stop. I'll check where the fittings go into the bottom of the tank. Move this camera down here so you can see what we're talking about. Alright, so the tank is sloped down. This is the bottom of the tank. This is our fuel outlet. I know the purists are probably going to hate me when they see this, but this is just how I like to do things. So I do not have a sediment bowl on here. I have a simple cutoff valve, 90 degree ball valve. It's either on or it's off. You really can't mess that up. It goes into a simple plastic paper filter. I can view to see how dirty or clean the fuel is, or any sediment and or flow. And then this rubber hose just ties right into the brass line going to the carburetor right there. So anyway, like I said, I know the purists probably hate this, but that's how I roll. That's what I like to do. It's my tractor, so that's what we're gonna do. All right, next thing is, I know I have some fuel in the tank and there's no leaks around here, so we're good. I know we're good up to this cutoff valve. I'm gonna open the cutoff valve. We should see some fuel flow into this filter, and at that point the fuel is gonna fill the bowl and the carburetor. We're not going to be able to see that, but I will move this a little bit closer here so that hopefully you can see the fuel flow into that filter. So I expect to see some fuel flow for a while, and then it's going to stop. So basically that's going into the carburetor, filling the bowl up. The float's going to float to the top of that float area in the bowl, and that needle valve is going to seat and stop the flow going in. So we should see flow, and then it should stop. If we continue to see flow, or if we start having fuel dripping out of here, then we can always shut it off, and we know there's an issue with the float. All right, we got some flow. And it seems to have stopped, but it could be moving a little bit. One way to check is you can shut it. Sometimes some fuel will drain out of there, sometimes it won't. You can open it back up again, and I don't see any more flow. So either the float's not letting fuel into the carburetor, or the bowl has filled and the float stopped the flow. Either way, we're good. There's no leaks here. There's no leaks on the carburetor, so I think we're good on the fuel side of it. Whew. All right, here we go. It's a little nerve-wracking, I will admit. So here's what we're gonna do. My throttle, I have it all the way down to the idle position. I'm going to take it just off idle. My battery's connected, positive ground, negative to the starter. My fuel cutoff is open, so I have fuel flowing to the carburetor. No leaks. I've checked all my fluids. It's in neutral, not that it really matters. There's nowhere it can go. I have my fire extinguisher standing by. In fact, I'm going to take it with me to this side over here. Make sure I'm still recording. And we'll kind of go from here. In fact, I think I'm going to leave my fire extinguisher on this side, because in the event that it starts, I'm going to need to come over here most likely to make some carburetor adjustments anyway, so we'll just kind of roll with it and see what happens. But I am going to go on this side to do the starting. Fingers crossed. Fuel, battery, fluids, neutral even though we don't need it. Ignition switch on. It may take a few cranks until it fires, until we get fuel into the system. So we'll just kind of go from there and see how it goes. That's a real good sign. Alright, I'm going to shut my ignition back off. So we had a quick fire, which was good, but then there was no more after that. We might need a little choke. I wouldn't think we need it because it's hot out, but let's see what we got going on. Alright, ignition on, give it some choke. Alright, nothing there. Let's try messing with this needle jet here a little bit. So I think we had it 1.5. Let's try it again. I'm going to screw it all the way back in. And let's do 2 this time. So we've got half, 1, 1.5, 2. Everything still looks good. Nothing abnormal. Let's give that another shot. I'm going to say it's a fuel issue because I know I have spark. I'm going to shut this fuel off for a second here. And I know we had combustion, which could have easily been the oil that was in the cylinders from when we put this thing together. So, let's see. Let's try turning this out a little bit more. So this idle adjustment adjusts the air, not the fuel, but might be all we need there. Now I do see some wetness between the hose and the carb, so I think we are getting the fuel. I'm going to take this boot off in the inlet and put a bigger bucket under here. Over there, in the event the carb floods, it'll flood into the bucket and not mess up the paint. So it's all good. We might have just flooded it out, and we'll go from there. So let me get this boot off and start the video back up. Alright, so I removed the rubber boot from the inlet to the carb, and there was no fuel that came out. So there was no flooding issue. I think the next thing I'll do is I'll pull the plugs real quick just to see if there's fuel on those or if I can smell any fuel in the combustion area. If not, then we've got an issue here in the carburetor not delivering fuel to the engine. So right now I have the fuel shut off as well as my ignition. May even need to just turn the distributor. My timing could be off. It's just not firing at the right time. So if we pull these plugs out and we see that they have fuel on them, or a smell of fuel, then that may be the issue. It's not a fuel. If I have fuel to the plugs and the plugs are wet, then we're good on that end. It's definitely an ignition issue. Let's see here. Nope. I'm not smelling any fuel. They're dry. So I think we're on a fuel issue. Like I said, I know I had fire to the point, so with all new cap, rotor, wires, plugs, we should be good to go, but I'll just check anyway. Yep. That one's dry too. No fuel. So we're not getting fuel, so it's something in the carburetor. So before I get too deep into disassembling things, I'm gonna go ahead and open up my fuel cutout again, and I see the fuel is not moving in this filter. it seemed to fill kind of quick. It's almost like it went from the tank to the carb and then stopped. So it could be that the float is stuck in the closed position, not allowing the fuel to flow in. So I'm just going to try tapping on the body with this this mallet, and in the meantime I'm going to watch this fuel filter glass here to see if I see bubbles or fuel moving when I tap on here. And I'm not seeing anything move. Alright, well, let's go ahead and shut this fuel cut off, and I'm going to grab a wrench and we're going to open up the drain at the bottom of the carb here. Oh, that one's too big. 7/16. All these buckets here trying to keep fuel from leaking on my paint. So I've got the fuel shut off so that in the event I take this plug out and there is fuel getting into the bowl, we won't have too big of a mess. Now if I take this plug out and fuel comes out, then I know I at least have fuel getting to the bowl of the carburetor. Let's see what we got here. And we've got fuel. So we've got fuel going into the bowl of the carburetor, which is good. It's just not getting up to the engine. And that was pretty much a full bowl. So what that's telling me is my float is not allowing fuel into, well, it fills the bowl. I don't know, I guess it wouldn't be the float because the bowl's filling and it's stopping. If the bowl didn't stop filling, it would be coming out through the intake here. So let's go ahead and let's try this again. I'm going to tighten up this drain. Let's see what we got. It definitely should have fired by now. Alright, well, I think I'm going to have to pull this carb apart and check everything and see what's going on. It's all good. Sometimes it can be frustrating. Can't expect them to start first time every time, right? Another thing we could also do is I could always pull the carburetor off, like the 420 for example. I know the carburetor is good. I know there's no issues with that. I could plug it on here to the 430, and if it starts and runs, then we've eliminated, we know it's definitely 100% the carburetor, which I think it is. Like I said, I know I got spark. There's no fuel on the plugs, so it's not flooding out. Normally I was messing with the throttle. I had the choke on. At some point that would have flooded out and fuel coming out of here. So I think we're getting minimal fuel, at least into the bowl, but at that point it's not getting into the fuel system of the carburetor, the venturi, to actually light off and fire. So it's hot as hell today, so I think I'm probably just going to stop for today, and maybe tomorrow I'll pull the carburetor off the 420 and switch it out, just so we can hear this run and make sure it's good, and then I can start digging into this carburetor to see what the problem is. Alright, I don't recommend this, especially with a new engine that hasn't ran yet, but just to alleviate problem areas, I did spray a little bit of starter fluid in, and we're able to get it light off. So just do a little quick spray of the fun gas. So definitely a carb issue. Like I said, tomorrow I'll pull the carburetor off the 420. We'll put it on just to make sure we can get everything running and there's no other issues, and then we'll dig into this carburetor and see what the problem was. So hopefully we can get it resolved. Guess who's back? All right, I gotta figure this out today. I can't go to bed not knowing how this thing runs without changing this carburetor. So I got some old clothes on. I'm going to pull the carburetor off the 420, pull this carburetor off, put the 420 on here. This thing's running today. We're gonna hear this today. Oh man. All right. It's so hot out, it's not even funny. Alright, so I got carburetor off the 430, and I was going to take the carburetor off of the 420, but for the purists who were complaining about my hose setup on here before, that one's actually correct with the sediment bowl and the copper line going to the carb, so I didn't want to have to try to finagle fittings and figure out how to get that working. So I took this carb off. Sweaty Betty to the rescue. It had my nice rubber hose clamp fuel configuration. So that's it. I just pulled this one off Sweaty Betty, my 1950 John Deere MT. It's pretty much the same carburetor. I am not going to make any adjustments to this carburetor, so in the event, I'm sure it's going to start now, but it may not run perfect. It may need to have some carburetor adjustments made, or even some timing. I'm not going to deal with any of that right now. I don't want to mess with the adjustments on this carburetor. It works perfect on Sweaty Betty, so I don't want to tinker with it and then have to try to figure that one out again too. So anyway, that being said, I put another bucket under here just in case it floods. It'll drip into there to save my paint. I've got my choke hooked up, which should work. Maybe not. Alright, so we might not have choke. Hopefully, I don't think we'll need it. It's like friggin' 100 degrees out. Fuel's aligned. Fuel's on. Got the battery. I've got my ping pong ball or tennis ball off the top. So, alright. Second time's a charm, right? Let's see how we fare with this one. I'll bring my idle back to idle. My ignition is on. Let's see what we got. Do a walk around and make sure there aren't any leaks or anything. Man, ready to go. Got a little smoke coming out. Lots of assembly lube, lots of extra oil in the cylinder. Remember, we put a bunch in and we didn't know how long it was going to take. The rings have to wear in, so I'm not concerned with that right now. Let this run for a little bit, keep an eye on the temp, oil pressure, do some RPM variances, and go. But look at that, ready to roll. the carburetor. I know it's from Sweaty Betty, but you can see it's adjusted right. My intake manifold is starting to freeze up. It's got the condensation on there right now. It's really hot out today, but it's got the condensation and it's really cold. If I let this run for a while, you'll probably start to see some frost on there. That's always a good indication that it's set right. That's why I don't want to mess with anything on there. Got some smoke coming off here. Got brand new exhaust gaskets that are burning in. Paint is going to start burning off, so that's normal. Biggest thing, we just want to keep an eye on all our pressure defects. Our pressure's a little higher than I'd like it to be, so I need to look into that. Water temp is good. We're still in the normal range. We'll do some walk arounds to make sure there aren't any leaks, but so far so good. We'll let this run for a little bit, and then we'll come back. Maybe we'll try putting it in gear, make sure the final drives work, steering clutches and everything. Sounds good though. Alright, I'm going to use the clutch with my hand. I'm going to put her in first gear. We'll see how the final drives are doing. Make sure there's no funny noises or anything. Alright, letting off the clutch. Well, she turns. That's good. Let's check the other side. Oh yeah. Rolling too. Even spin it. Nice. Alright, I'm going to leave this back here. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to leave this back here and I'm going to try the steering clutches. I'll do the left one first. You should see that one stop while the right one continues to turn. And then we'll do the opposite. So we'll do the left steering clutch first. Alright, it's still turning. Might need to make an adjustment on that one there. Alright, let's try the right one. Let me go back over here. Alright, right clutch. Alright, that one stops. Left one's still going. So the right one's good. It's just this left one. And I see it's slow. There we go. Probably just needs to kind of wear in a bit. That might need some adjustment anyway, once we get tracks on and everything. Let's see if we got reverse. Nice. No grinding in the main clutch. No funny noises. Vibrations or anything. Be mindful of that PTO thing. I'm going to shut it off. Man, it's a good feeling finally to see and hear and feel and smell this thing running. It's always like I said, intimidating the first time. But overall I'm happy with it. I mean, it sucks about the carburetor. No big deal, there could be bigger problems, right? I mean, my drive clutch works. The steering clutches and brakes work. Like all the big money things work. So if I gotta rebuild the carburetor again or whatever, it'll be no problem. Yeah, it probably just needs to clean it out one more time or something. I got a little passage I missed. Who knows? We'll get it worked out, but it seems to run pretty good. We'll do another quick little ramp up here. Governor picks it up right away. Good. throttle. Let's see if it falls on its face. Can't beat that. Awesome. Alright, I'm going to let this cool down for a little bit, do some more heat cycles, but overall, that's a damn good feeling to finally hear this thing run. And it runs great too. I mean, you know, no issues with the drive clutch. Steering clutches and brakes seem okay. I may need to make some fine tweaks and adjustment as expected. Of course, once we get the tracks on and start driving it and moving it around, we'll have to, you know, tweak from there. But considering that this is just a pull-off carburetor from another rusty old tractor and hadn't been tuned or adjusted or anything, just seems to run pretty good. Comes right up in RPM. Bring her down, the governor picks it up, keeps it from stalling out. Has a nice low idle, low P idle, it's good. Temps are normal. I got into the middle of the green. My oil pressure is still a little high. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but everything else feels okay. I mean, nothing abnormal temperature-wise on the engine. I mean, obviously it's hot. You know, it's a hot day, plus it's running, but nothing crazy. I don't have blistering paint anywhere. You know, paint's gonna burn off, whether it be the head or the exhaust or whatever. The smoke you saw was from the exhaust gasket burning off. Obviously some paint and whatnot, so that's normal. But it's always good just to do a quick walk around and make sure everything's good. As far as leaks, there's no leaks or anything like that. So got it up to temperature. I can feel the radiators warm up top. The upper hose is warm as well, so I know the thermostat's opening and regulating. I have a fan on here. I'm sure you can probably hear that. You know, kind of blowing some cool air across everything. It's super hot today. I don't know. It's like upper 90s and really humid, as you can tell. I'm drenched. But anyway, long story short, we're good. I'm going to leave this carburetor on here for the time being. Over the next couple days, I'm going to start it, let it get to temp, come down, let it kind of get broke in. We'll have to go back and retorque the head bolts once we've gone through some heat cycles. I've got some bare wires up here. They're taped off, but my headlights and the rear work light, I don't have those yet. I need to order those and get those in. Now that I know there's no leaks or any issues, well, once I get the head bolts retorqued, I can go ahead and put the hood on. I'll get my decals on, and this part of it's done. I mean, all we have left is the undercarriage. So a little frustrating about the carburetor, especially being as I just did a video yesterday on rebuilding the whole thing. Everything is correct in there, so I'm sure it could be something as simple as when I had to tap that hole for the main nozzle. You know, I just blew it out real quick. There could be just some sludge or gunk in there. You know, it is getting fuel to the bowl. It's just not getting into the main nozzle, main jets, and the getting into that atomization process to get fuel into the intake. So anyway, we'll get it worked out. No big deal. I mean, if a bad carburetor is the biggest problem I have with this, I'm golden. You know, I could have had a clutch issue, a drive clutch issue, and have to split the tractor again. We could have had steering clutch issues, have to pull final drives off. So, blessing in disguise, I can deal with a carburetor that needs some more attention. So, anyway, that's it for today's video. You heard it here first. Started up July, I don't know, 8th, 9th, whatever it is. So, let's see, when do we get this? February, March, April, May, June, July, 5 months. It's not too bad. I've done quicker, but this one's been a slow process. Of course, with the YouTube channels, or the YouTube channel and the videos, that definitely slows everything down. This video here, this start video, will be 61. So 61 videos since February to July. So it's a lot. It takes a lot to do these, but I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully you guys are getting something out of it. Looking forward to getting this thing through the heat cycles, get everything tightened up, get the hood on, decals, and I can actually just sit here and enjoy it. You know, I know it sounds funny. I'll probably come out and just sit on this thing and roll through the gears and just hear it run. But I guess that also means that I got to get started on the undercarriage part, which is dreadful. It's a lot of work. It's grunt work. It's heavy work, but it'll be worth it when it's done. So anyway, I'm gonna go take off these sweat-drenched clothes and get a shower, and thank my stars that this thing did start and run everything okay. So anyway, I appreciate everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.